Hello. Today we're going to be doing another academic reading. The title of the article that I'm going to be reading is Epistemological Challenges in Contemporary Western Healthcare Systems, exemplified by people's widespread use of contemporary alternative medicine. The article is by Anita Salamonsen of the UiT, or the Arctic University of Norway, and also Rolf Ahlzén, the University Hospital of Örebro, Sweden. Okay, I'm going to start with the abstract, and then we're going to go from there. I think this one's a little bit longer than usual. You're just going to have to bear with me on that. We'll get through it all right, I think. Modern Western public healthcare systems provide I'm making up words. I'm simply lying to you. Modern Western public healthcare systems offer predominantly publicly subsidized healthcare, traditionally based on biomedicine as the most important basis to cure persons who suffer from disorders of somatic or psychiatric nature. To which extent this epistemological position is suitable for this purpose is under scientific debate, and challenged by some people's personal understanding of health and illness, their individual illness experiences, and their decision-making. Current studies show decreasing levels of patient trust in Western public healthcare and a widespread patient-initiated use of complementary and alternative medicine, which is often linked to unmet patient-defined healthcare needs. Patients' complementary and alternative medicine users' understandings of their afflictions are often based on elements of biological knowledge as well as embodied and experience-based knowledge. We believe this points to the need for phenomenologically and socially based understanding of health and illness. In this article, he analyzed challenges in contemporary healthcare systems, exemplified by people's widespread use of contemporary and alternative medicine, and based on 3 ways of understanding and relating to unhealth or disease, the biomedical perspective, illness, the phenomenological perspective, and sickness, the social perspective. So, it's good to have you on today. I'm almost finished reading the abstract of the first article, so we're about to get into the main part of the introduction. Healthcare systems aiming at evolving patients and treatment processes, acknowledging the coexistence of differing epistemologies, may be of great importance to define the reach goals of treatment and compliance. Okay, that's the end of the abstract. We're going to be moving now into the introduction of the article. In modern Western welfare states, such as Scandinavian countries, the UK, Canada, the citizens who become ill are supposed to trust and receive healthcare within healthcare systems that are mainly publicly subsidized. Such public healthcare systems may be perceived as fragmented and highly specialized biomedical systems, with a strong focus on the case of disease and characteristics of the organ involved. In the current treatment for a recognized pathology, the relevance of such biomedical perspective is the main epistemological position for the treatment of disease, and is currently being challenged by person-based perspectives. Oh yeah, I am back. Sorry if I was away for a couple of days. Yeah, nice to see you again. Oh sure, yeah. I'll look up the article for you and give you the link. Yeah, do you want me to wait for a little bit so you can catch up? I should just add these into my description so that you can read what I'm doing. Okay. The thing about these articles is that they're often written by PhD and research students who like pour their entire years of work into these articles, and so they often have excessively long titles, and they also use a lot of interesting wording, to say the least. Temporary Western healthcare system exemplified. By people's widespread use. Complementary and alternative medicine. Yeah, that seems like the right one. Yeah, most of the articles are uploaded to the same website, so that makes it reasonably easy. Okay. Okay, there you go. There's a link to the article. Okay. I'll give you a couple of moments to catch up so you can get to where we are. I can always just restart the introduction because we only got to like the second sentence before you arrived, so we can just start at the beginning of the introduction if you'd like. Yes, they do have lozenges. Beautiful. Okay, just type in the chat when you got it up and ready to go. Got it up? Okay. Okay. No, don't worry, I didn't misunderstand. It's fine. I got you around the first time. Okay, so at the beginning of the introduction. In modern Western welfare states, such as Scandinavian countries, the UK, and Canada, citizens who will become ill are supposed to trust and receive healthcare within healthcare systems that are mainly publicly subsidized, such as public healthcare systems that may be perceived as fragmented and highly specialized biomedical systems. With a strong focus on the cause of disease and the characteristics of the organ involved, and the current treatment for recognized pathology. The relevance of such a biomedical perspective as the main epistemological position for the treatment of disease is currently being challenged by person-based perspectives of health and illness. This concept has several connotations, but we here assume that it means that the understanding of the nature of disease that brings biological factors as well as subjective understanding of the nature of disease. Sorry, I have a little bit of a problem where I start a sentence and then I accidentally restart the sentence because it's hard for me to follow the lines. Okay. Reading channel that is terrible at reading. That isn't a great sign. Okay. Okay, as well as subjective experience and sociocultural context into consideration, the latter perspectives are typically found in social science evaluations of public healthcare systems. and public healthcare policy documents, and last but not least, in patients who increasingly express their personal healthcare needs, healthcare experiences, and high expectations for healthcare services. No one paradigm of medicine or system of healthcare any longer holds any contested monopoly in modern societies. However, dominant biomedicine may seem the experience-based, unregulated, widespread, and patient-initiated use of complementary and alternative medicine may, among other things, be linked to possible epistemological weakness in the biomedical perspective, as well as increasing levels of trust in modern public health systems. Exploring and discussing such epistemological matters underlying healthcare practices may be central to achieving a higher degree of healthcare goal attainment. That is relieving suffering by promoting health and being the ethical demand to sometimes cure, often alleviate and always console. Spacing is best up in all these papers. Yeah, they don't have any line skips, so it's all just sort of like a block of text, and sometimes it's just a little bit hard to read. Epistemological, relating to the theory of knowledge, especially with regard to the methods, validity, and scope of the distinction between justified belief and opinion. Okay, yeah, that's a good way of approaching it. I think I said earlier in the abstract, yeah, whenever I'll be saying anything, yeah, because we're sort of viewing epistemological challenges as a component of why people often distrust Western healthcare. It's not because they aren't able to provide accurate and scientific care. It's more to do with what types of care they can provide and what they believe can be effective outside of specifically scientific-based care. Yeah. Okay, so we'll be moving on to the objectives of the article next, which you can probably see. This article provides an overview and discussion of the differing and often competing epistemological assumptions that can be recognized in contemporary Western landscapes. So they trust homeopathy and stuff more than modern medicine. It's not that they trust it more, it's that modern or Western medicine often provides a treatment for symptoms or for emergency situations. It's very good in particular circumstances. But for something like long-term well-being, someone might go to somebody like a therapist, for example, or they might take up something like yoga, or you're right, like homeopathy. And even though these people's methods might not be scientifically proven or be scientifically accurate or approved by any public health standard, people have thought that it helps them in ways other than physical, which allows them to benefit their own health. Because your health isn't just about your body, it's also about the way that your mind affects your body. If you have a good mindset, it can affect your health drastically. Yeah, modern health is incredibly specialized and very good at solving very specific issues. But for overall well-being and more holistic approaches, people often resort to more alternative medicine. Because often for more minor things, which are generally, yeah, I think they said something like 30% of the time when people go to a GP or a general practitioner, they don't know what's wrong with them, and so they essentially just give them a bunch of drugs which are supposed to help them cope with their symptoms. But often those drugs then give them more symptoms. And so they'd rather go with something that helps with their overall well-being and helps them cope with their symptoms in a different way than just treating the physical aspect of their illness. Yeah. Okay. So moving on to the objectives. I was up to the second sentence. We analyze challenges in contemporary healthcare systems, exemplified by people's widespread and often experience-based use of CAM, which is complement. Okay, so whenever we say CAM or CAM, we mean complementary and alternative medicine. So we're referring to stuff like homeopathy and yoga and acupuncture and that sort of thing. Stuff that isn't typical healthcare, but still help, its purpose is to treat people with improving their well-being. Okay, and based on 3 ways of understanding and relating to unhealth, which is also referred to as disease from the biomedical perspective, illness, the phenomenological perspective, and sickness, the socio perspective. Sorry, I'm just going to reread that last word again. Phenomenological. It's a very fun word to say, but it's very easy to screw up. Okay. In public healthcare systems aiming at involving patients in treatment processes, acknowledgement of the coexistence of differing epistemologies, that's the best I'm going to get from that, may be of great importance to define and reach goals of treatment and compliance. Tacit, taken for granted attitudes deeply affect the personal and professional understandings of health and illness. Thus, the content and quality of education and clinical practice as well as patients' decision-making. Okay, so the next portion of the article is called Contemporary and Alternative Medicine Use in Public Healthcare Contexts. So you might get like a better answer to your question earlier about whether it's just like homeopathy or like the general stuff that pops to mind. I'm pretty sure they'll have like better definitions in this section. What constitutes CAM, or contemporary alternative medicine, varies with a number of factors. Thus, the term contemporary alternative medicine and contemporary alternative medicine user can be defined differently between studies. Furthermore, what is defined as CAM changes over the borders between biomedically based medicine in healthcare and CAM are constantly changing. The Cochrane collaboration? Surely Cochrane? Cochrane collaboration. So that's a group that they're referring to. Okay, the Cochrane collaboration has defined CAM as a broad domain of healing resources that encompasses all healthcare systems, modalities, and practices, and their accompanying theories and beliefs other than those that are intrinsic to the politically dominant healthcare system. Yeah, Cochrane. Okay. Norway is one of the very few countries where CAM is legally defined. The Norwegian Act 64, which was signed on the 27th of June 2003, relating to the alternative treatment of disease, illness, and so forth, defines CAM as health-related treatment that is practiced outside the established health services and which is not practiced by authorized health personnel. However, treatment practiced within the scope of the established health services or by authorized health personnel is also covered by the term alternative treatment. When the methods used are essentially methods that are used outside the established health services. So you could think of anything that is supposed to like help someone with their illnesses, which just isn't accepted by modern medicine. Like anything outside of that you could classify as contemporary and alternative medicine. No applicable and official definitions of CAM exist in the rest of Scandinavia, UK, or Canada. But the situation is quite similar to Norway. Recent studies show that as many as 50% of Scandinavians have used contemporary alternative medicine, occasionally or regularly. A systematic review of studies of CAM use in 15 Western countries, including Canada, the United States, Sweden, Denmark, and others, found that the use was substantial and stable in all the included countries. For example, about 50% of Australia and 37% of the United States were using contemporary alternative medicine. The prevalence of CAM use seems to be higher among middle-aged women with higher education and people with poor self-reported health. CAM users do not leave the public healthcare system despite negative experiences and sometimes function as pushovers for their decision to use CAM. The concept of CAM includes different forms of the use of contemporary alternative medicine and commitment to contemporary and alternative medicine, a fact that should be acknowledged when analyzing the meaning and importance. Damn, there's a lot of use of this acronym, man. I'm going to get bored of this really quickly. It's a continuation sentence. And analyzing the meaning and importance of contemporary and alternative medicine use, a consumer commitment model, and a model that distinguishes between CAM users visiting a CAM practitioner repeatedly and those that are not that dedicated, have thus suggested another possibly important distinction that has been made between the majority of ill contemporary alternative medicine users who use alternative medicine as supplement to recommended treatment offered in the public healthcare system, and a small group choosing to use alternative medicine as an exclusive alternative despite the medical advice. The concept of alternative medicine thus refers to a diverse field of practices, products, knowledge, and technologies recognized in late modern societies. Alternative medicine use may vary from taking commonly used herbs and vitamins as supplements to treatments offered in the public healthcare system to the decision to forego important biomedical cancer treatments. However, as argued by Adams, 2012, Sayar-Push, 1998, and other scholars, many mind-body orientated alternative medicine modalities such as spiritual healing that are highly valued by their users still operate largely outside the mainstay of the public healthcare system and have traditionally been excluded from the core medial curriculum. A widespread use of CAN has been implemented both as a result of positive experiences with alternative medicine and a somewhat negative attitude towards the biomedical dominance in the Western public healthcare systems. Sayar-Push, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this person's name. Sayar-Push distinguishes an interesting review between three complementary hypotheses to explain why people turn to alternative medicine despite receiving or being offered treatment within the public healthcare system. The medical outcome hypothesis postulates that people turn to alternative medicine because they are dissatisfied with the health outcomes of treatments offered in the public healthcare system. The medical encounter hypothesis states that people who are dissatisfied with the interaction with doctors in the public healthcare system. The postmodern hypothesis explains people's commitment to alternative medicine by the recent emergence of a new value system that is congruent with the physiophysical underpinnings of alternative medicine. I've never heard physio. Oh, philosophy. That's what that word was. I was reading it completely wrong. Hello, new people. It's philosophical, not physiological. It's fucking philosophical. I'm blind. I swear I'm fucking blind. What the hell is that? Philosophical. So it's sort of like philosophy you understand is like is the study of thinking. It's sort of like, so philosophical is like when you're looking from a perspective of like ways of thinking or ways of understanding things. So when you think of something from philosophical, something that is congruent with the philosophical underpinnings of CAN, meaning like the ideals of alternative medicine and what they present. So when you talk about the philosophical ideas of it, it's like the big picture idea surrounding something. Like if I were to say like the philosophical idea of religion, or like the philosophical idea of caring for the environment, you could come up with all these like big wishy-washy sort of definitions of what you want to achieve with that. Yeah. It's how people, postmodern hypothesis explains people's commitment to alternative medicine by recent emergence of new value. Now, it's sort of like people prefer something in which has like a larger meaning to it. Like you can think of modern medicine as something which illustrates a definite meaning. Like, yes, this is what you're suffering from. This is the illness in your kidney, for example, and this is how we're going to treat it. Whereas like with alternative medicine, it's more like your entire body is more out of balance, and we need to fix these lifestyle issues because you need to think of life from a new perspective in order to improve your health, which is correct to some degree, but not in very specific emergency situations. And so when you're thinking of people who generally just have difficulty embracing and controlling a good level of quality of life, this would be a good approach to take with them. Oh, hello. How are you doing? It's great that you're doing good. Yeah, it's all about being able to express it in a more holistic perspective. Hey. Don't fight, please. Don't fight in the chat. No fighting. Okay. I'm going to be moving on. Now that you know what philosophical means, I'm going to be moving on to the next part. Don't you dare fucking say it. No. Okay. Oh, oh, you got it going for you now. Oh no. I don't care that you broke your elbow. So vicious. Don't be too mean now. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next part. Oh, I loved you platonically. You were a platonic companion of mine, virtual chatter. I love you platonically, okay? Yeah? Platonic love for everybody. Okay, moving on. These hypotheses clearly overlap and are supported by a large number of empirical studies. Such patterns of alternative medicine are often use patterns of such alternative medicine use are often found in persons living with chronic conditions who seek relaxation and well-being when full cure is not possible. Yeah, so that's sort of like what we explained earlier. So the people who are often seeking out alternative medicine are those struggling with conditions which don't really have a specific solution, which can be fixed with biomedicine. Oh, hello! I hope you're doing well. What did you miss? You missed the introduction. I mean, are we still going through the introduction? No. We're into the first paragraph. But I can give you the article. There you go. And we're up to page 359. And we're almost finished with it if you want to read along with us. Okay. I'm going to continue. It's okay. Well, what you can do is you can just click on the link and I can finish the page and I can ask you by the time I finish the page if you've gotten the page up. So then you can catch up with us when we read from page 360. Okay? Cool. Okay, so up to what? Slow down. I'm sorry. So click on the link that'll send you to the article that we're currently reading. Then go to page 360. Once you've gotten there, just let me know and I'll start reading from there. Okay, it's fine. If you just want me to keep reading, I'll just keep going. It's okay, I'll just keep going. If you prefer to just listen without it, that's fine as well. Okay. I've lost my place. Okay. Central elements in many alternative medicine modalities have been associated with personal self-centeredness, empowerment, salutogenic care, and self-management. It's okay. Does the link work? Or it's okay. It's okay. No fighting in the comment section. Everyone is equally intelligent. Everyone, I love all my followers the same. It's okay. Calm down in the comment section. Quit throwing shade at each other. Quit throwing shade. No shade thrown in this comment section. You had a dream but you forgot it? That's kind of normal. That's okay. Yeah, looking to improve general health. Yeah, that's generally looking to improve general health. Yeah, that's generally what perspective they would look for an alternative medicine rather than solving specific issues. It's looking at a more holistic approach to it, which may be appropriate in some situations, but not all of them. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. Thank you for the definitions, they're very helpful. Complementary explanations for alternative medicine use can be found in the literature such as increasing economic capital and alternative medicine users perceived as consumers. We would like to add that it seems likely that increasing expectations among Western populations for well-being and quality of life create an increased demand for therapies in addition to what predominant healthcare systems are able to offer. According to the World Health Organization, the general goal of a healthcare system is to promote and restore and maintain health. Such broad defined ideals are challenged by the fact that there are significant variations in the interpretations of the concept of health across individuals, professions, organizations, and cultures. The widespread use of can may be perceived as an important demonstration of a large group of healthcare users. Sorry? Okay, nice dream, dude. I hope it was a nice dream. Okay, I'm moving on. The widespread use of alternative medicine may be perceived as an important demonstration of a large group of healthcare users, health and illness understanding, and their healthcare preferences. Okay, so you talked with your imaginary love interest. That was nice. Oh, I mean, that's kind of nice. Yeah, I mean, yo, cam and consumers. Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to be a degenerate, but there was like a reference in South Park that was made a little while back where you have to sort of be careful with alternative medicines and what they're trying to market you. Because if they're trying to market you something that seems beyond just like helping with your general well-being, it's probably something that you need to be very careful with. Because they might just be trying to get your money rather than just trying to sell you a product that would help you with your well-being. So, yeah, it's something to look out for. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a whole section on, I think it was the store that was like, oh, we're against Big Pharma and all of that. And there was this whole little reference on a store that was like, yeah, Big Pharma's trying to take your money, don't buy drugs. Oh yeah, by the way, we're selling you this herbal tea for $1,000. It'll fix all your problems. Cancer, we got it. Go for it. And it's like, okay, so Big Pharma's trying to get them out of money, but you are as well. You can't just say that a business is bad without also accepting that what you're doing is also a business and you're also trying to make a profit. It's yeah, very true. Gamer Girls Bathwater does indeed cure cancer. Send more money to my people over there. Look, if somebody is confident enough to sell their fucking bathwater, I think they deserve it. I think they deserve the money at that point. I could never. Challenged by the fact. Oh, sorry, I've lost my place again. The widespread use of alternative medicine may be perceived as an important demonstration of a large group of healthcare users, health and illness understandings, and their healthcare preferences. Systematic reviews have shown that beliefs about control and participation a holistic view of health, and a desire for natural, non-invasive treatments predict alternative medicine use after controlling for demographic and clinical variables. Studies have also revealed that professionals in the public health care, sorry, that's a very long reference. When does the reference start and the article end? Recent white papers like the Norwegian Innovation Program, Future Care, recommend a high degree of patient involvement and shared decision-making in public health care. It may remain challenging, however, to change that everyday clinical practice in line with these ideals. The conditions for and the consequences of such an idea of increased self-determination and involvement must also be carefully scrutinized. He proposed that knowledge gained from these experiences of active and involved alternative medicine users and analyzers, I'm guessing that's what they meant, of alternative medicine use in Western healthcare states may provide us with some useful information. Did you read that article about how chiropractic treatment equals bleeding in the eyes? Oh no, I haven't read that article. That's very interesting. I haven't really looked that much into chiropractic care. I've heard that it can help with very specific issues in relation to people's joints, especially with back issues. But going to a chiropractor and thinking that they can solve all your problems by realigning your back and cracking all your joints isn't the right way to go about it. Yeah, it might help with somebody who has scoliosis, for example, or maybe a massage by a chiropractor might help with like muscle knots and that sort of thing. But no, that's horrific if that's actually true. Yeah, that's terrible. I mean, it just reminds me of the fucking ring dinger thing that people would do, and they just like bank on people's necks, and I'm like, that can't be any good for their necks. Holy fuck, what are you doing to them? Okay, moving on to the next paragraph. It's called Three Main Perspectives on Health and Illness. We assume that biomedical, a social, and a phenomenological perspective coexist in different contaminations. That is the correct contaminations, okay. Yeah, no, your neck is very fragile. It can fracture and break very easily, and once you do break the neck, you're essentially fucked. So it's something that you want to generally avoid. Okay. Coexist in different contaminations, with varying emphasis among persons seeking healthcare, as well as among healthcare professionals that alternative medicine practitioners. These perspectives mirror a fundamental epistemological divide in present society, a tension that has been in Western society since the 17th century, so that's 1600s. Okay. When Descartes attempted to formulate his answer to the mechanistic challenge of the new science, the body-mind dualism pervades contemporary society, as well as tension between individual and society, the subject and the social group. It is important to emphasize that the three perspectives we discuss are theoretical constructions and analytical tools that are more rigid than what can be found in real life. Doctors, of course, know that they always relate to persons in their clinical practice, and have both positive and negative experiences with both healthcare professionals and alternative medicine practitioners who are not medically trained and who are not necessarily so person-orientated. Not necessarily so person-orientated? Okay. The biomedical perspective presented here is a theoretical template, an ideal type in the Weberian sense of modern medicine, which can be in practice and never followed, such as an epistemological model that presented perspective exerts a strong influence. Many students find that they are encouraged to choose one or the other perspective, to become a real medical doctor or a real medical sociologist. Okay, the next paragraph is called The Biomedical Perspective, Focus on the Real Disease. Okay, so for people who are asking earlier about the perspective of biomedicine, how it's different from alternative medicine and that sort of thing, this paragraph is probably going to explain quite a bit. Okay. Since early 19th century, Western public healthcare systems have been gradually higher. I have skipped a bunch of words. Sorry. I think why most alternative medicine fails is because they have been tested strenuously by traditional medicine and found to have failed. I wonder if alternative medicine been successful because of the placebo effect. Yes, that is a big component of it. If a person truly believes that what they're taking will help them with what they have, then it will help them to some degree, no matter if the product is going to help their physical health in a scientific sense or not. So yes, the placebo effect does play a big role in alternative medicine. It's not that most alternative medicines fail. For example, acupuncture is very helpful in terms of pain relief, relaxation, and helping with chronic illnesses. It's a very well-defined and tested method of helping people with pain, which is proven to be better than using painkillers, or at least I guess painkillers may be more practical. And it's acupuncture. People don't know the science behind it, but it really does work. They've done clinical trials with acupuncture on many occasions, and it has been proven to help people with pain. I know because I've had several family members who struggle with chronic illness and have been on pain meds for an extended period of time, and they're like, you know what, I want to try something different because these pain medications are interfering with my life, and I want to try something that's less invasive, which is actually one of the points in this article that people make, that people switch to alternative medicine for at least some component of their healthcare because of the effects that biomedicine has on their life, because it's so invasive in terms of like how it's focused on chemicals which have side effects, and those side effects have side effects, and you have to take medicines for the side effects upon side effects. So it's just a never-ending chain of side effects and drugs, and that can get really tiring for some people. Or if the solution to their medical issue is something like surgery, and that's something they don't want to go under. Why doesn't clinical medicine offer acupuncture? It's because it's not backed on a scientific basis. It's a component of traditional Chinese medicine. And there are a lot of practitioners which recommend acupuncture as a treatment, but they don't perform it themselves because it isn't scientifically backed. It's backed from a very spiritualist type Chinese treatment, which people often use. So it doesn't follow the same mantra that most clinical medicine uses, which is why it's considered alternative medicine. Immunology, yep, like if you get cancer. Like if you get cancer, a good way to what? That is some misinformation. No, getting sick with a virus does not cure your cancer. The virus wouldn't, especially with specific types of cancer which decrease the efficiency of your immune system. If you infect yourself with a virus, you're more likely to die from the virus because cancer affects your immune system to a high degree. People who die of cancer often don't die of cancer itself, but the side effects that come from having cancer, such as a lowered immune system. So no, becoming infected with a virus would not benefit you in any way if you are suffering with any kind of cancer, especially if you're undergoing chemotherapy, which also decreases your immunity to most things. Without being specifically about results, so I'm skeptical. Yeah, I mean, it's just about the mantra that people go by. Scientific medicine is just like, even if it is proved, you have to be trained in a very specific area in order to do acupuncture and that sort of thing. Modern medicine, yeah, they explain it well. It's Jupiter. Yeah, that might be good. I mean, that concerns me immensely, especially if you're undergoing this viral treatment as you're doing it under immunology in conjunction with something like chemotherapy, which inherently impacts their immune system. That sounds very scary. Yeah, I don't know whether to trust that or not. Yeah. Okay. I mean, people are using something like gene manipulation, in which people do use viruses or like virus-like components to attack those cells, or they train specific immune cells to attack cancer and that sort of thing. That exists. But I don't know about just infecting somebody with a random pathological virus. Okay, well, you're going to see me the video later anyway, so hopefully that would clear something up. So I think I'll continue reading. Cool. Yeah, I've written a couple of papers on the on how effective acupuncture can be. I don't know about how effective it is against other treatments aside from painkillers, but it has, studies have showed that it definitely helps with pain. It's a very good way to treat people with chronic pain. Dr. Williams, we called it. Yeah, I'll have to look it up later, and I'll have to confirm with some people. Yeah, I can understand how it got a lot of criticism. It sounds absurd. I mean, if it works, it works. But, oh well. I mean, thanks for sharing that with me. I'll look into it and see what this path of immunology has to hold. Okay, I'm gonna. Yeah, it's really early. Yeah, I mean, there wasn't a lot of treatments for cancer back then, so people were essentially trying everything, especially since it was such a common cause of death back then. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. Okay. Okay, Western public healthcare systems have been, to a gradually higher extent, relying on a biomedical basis for medical practice, research, and education. Biomedicine here refers to the commonly established form of Western medicine, taught in medical schools, that occupies a dominant, often exclusive monopoly over legitimate medical care in many societies. The biomedical perspective arose in conjunction of scientific approaches to understanding the human body, where disease was defined as a tissue dysfunction and structural deviances in organ systems. Without doubt, it was significantly influenced by major medical advances in diagnosis and treatment. Biomedicine is focused on the cause of the disease and the characteristics of the organ involved. Sorry, I'll just finish the sentence first. The current evidence based on treatment for a recognized pathology. Disease is here understood as negative bodily occurrences as conceived of by the medical profession. Okay, if we had to verify the I mean, I think the first instance of what he was talking about occurred in 1891, and so they have researched it from then on forward and have done it in more specific trials and more clinical case studies to make it a treatment in modern medicine. They didn't just look at one dude in 1891 and be like, this it worked, we're going to continue doing that. No, they must have done a lot of studies, and that must have been the first occurrence of something like that happening. So, yeah, I don't think that's what they did, but okay, I'm going to continue. It does kickstart the immune system, so yes, I guess that would help the cancer to some degree. Yeah, but some features of the immune system which kick off your cancer is still your own tissue to some degree. So anything that wouldn't harm your own tissue probably wouldn't harm the cancer either. your body does have an efficiency to kill cancer cells, and it has specific T cells in order to do so. But immune responses such as fevers and antibodies and that sort of thing don't particularly help with cancers. They have to have very specific killer T cells in order to kill cancer, ones that are specialized to it rather than like a general immune response. Yeah, they would go, yeah, yeah, they cause them to go into apoptosis. Yeah, that's the method in which they use. But other components of the immune system, aside from the specific killer T cells, which are designed to kill cancer cells, won't really assist in the killing of cancer. This is why we have to have something like chemotherapy, which specifically targets our own cells that replicate at high speeds, such as cancer cells, which is why it also affects, for example, it damages people's hair follicles, so people's hair falls out, or it affects their skin because your skin and your hair are extremely high replicating, which is why they often get damaged by chemotherapy, because it's trying to target areas of your body which have high densities of cell replication. Yeah, so we have to think of cancer as a component of our cells, which is trying to kill us rather than like an external factor. So a normal immune response, which would have to either a viral or bacterial infection, won't necessarily combat a cancerous illness. Yes, they do. Yeah, they do mutate. I mean, the concept of it does adapt to chemotherapy and radiotherapy, which is why you have other treatments as well. But the point I was trying to make is not specifically that chemotherapy is effective, but that taking the perspective that cancer cells are still a component of our own bodies is very important in diagnosing and treating cancer in the correct way. So it just essentially, yeah. I mean, it does buy you time, but it also weakens the cancer to a degree to the capacity where you could possibly get a surgery or something like that. So, yeah, it depends on the treatment which your doctor has prescribed you. It also depends on the type of cancer you have, because a lot of the time cancers are chronic, like childhood leukemia, for example. It affects your blood. There is no way of surgically removing all that blood. So what you would need are just specific organ transplants. If you wanted to live for a longer period of time than what was given to you, you'd need to have like the necessary organ transplants over time that the cancer was damaging, or plasma transplants to help boost your immune system in order to combat the cancer which is in your body. But yeah, it really depends on the type of cancer that you have, because it's very cancer specific on what type of treatment you're able to get. Okay. It does all take time for doctors to prepare. Like, yeah, it does. Healthcare system kind of sucks in that way, especially since each cancer is quite unique to the person. Some of them are at different stages than others. Some might spread at different capacities to others. Some are more likely for it to develop faster than others. So yes, it would take a long period of time in order to help or like come up with a treatment for cancer. You would definitely have short-term treatments like chemotherapy, which would help slow down the cancer in order for the doctor to provide like proper treatment, or even removing a portion of the tumor through surgery would slow down the progression of cancer as well. So there's a lot of different ways in which you could go about increasing the time that the patient has for you to come up with a proper solution for the issue that they're currently facing. So yeah, I'm not exactly a specialist in cancer, so I can't speak too much on it. I can only go off the knowledge that I have personally, and that's basically all that I can really provide. I'm going to continue on with the article. Feel free to keep commenting. I will respond to them, but I'm not going to be able to provide a very professional point of view on cancer treatment because it's not something that I am extremely qualified to talk about. Okay. biomedicine is focused on the cause of disease and the characteristics of the organ involved, and the current evidence-based treatment for a recognized pathology. Disease here is understood to be as a negative bodily occurrence, such as conceived by of the medical profession. Critique has since at least 40 years been raised against the dominance of this perspective, stressing the risk that subjective experiences of illness, as well as socioeconomic determinants of health, may be brushed aside in clinical practice. A typical critique focuses on the displacement of the ill person's experiences in the professional understanding of diseases as it is. There's going to be a quote by Cunningham and Wilson, which I think is another article or book that they have written. Discovered by research that diseases exist independently of persons, that the correct attitude or stance of doctors is that of objective scientists, these uncontested assumptions have led to a black or white dichotomy, I'm going to go with that, between correct and incorrect medical practice, without consideration of each patient's ideas, beliefs, or particular context, and how these factors can impact on disease outcomes. I'm glad you woke up a bit more. I always forget that whenever I stream, it's like morning in America, so I'm your morning radio, guys. You don't need the radio anymore, you just need me. Okay. Okay. That was the end of the quote, so we'll be moving. You're in the UK. It's 11 a.m. Did you just wake up? Oh, did you get a good sleep? I'm guessing you did if you slept in that much. Huh. Yes. Oh, yo. I don't know where else you'd get it. Oh, you've forgotten me already? Yeah, I'm sorry. I find it really hard to remember very specific details about the people in my chat. Okay, so one of you is American and the other one is from the UK. So one of them it's early in the morning and the other one it's later in the morning. Okay, I forget. I don't have a sleep routine, so yeah, I don't have a sleep or awake. Oh, you sound a lot like a friend that that I go to university with. He sometimes he just goes full night owl, stays up for the entire night, and sleeps from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., gets up, has his day during the fucking night, and it just on repeat, and he have shift changes, and he's like, oh, I actually slept during the night this time, and I'm like, how messed up is your sleep schedule? Why do you keep doing this to your body? Surely that's not healthy for you. Okay, I'm going to continue. A self-important element is this impersonal system and is a perspective on the body and the self as separate identities. Sorry. Writers don't need a sleep routine. Oh, you're a writer. That's nice. Oh, what do you publish? Or what kind of things do you write? Diseases are located in the body and are at least in principle measurable and depictable and of identifiable cases. Causes. This is within medical sociology and the theory of science referred to as medicine's mind-body dualism and the doctrine of specific etiology. Disease is considered independently from the context, individual experiences, and subjective interpretations. Within the scope of social relationships, typically physician to patient, are formalized and impersonal. Alright, sci-fi fantasy mainly, but I'm close to publishing a book about supernatural horror right now. Oh, that's so cool! I didn't think there'd be a fucking author in my chat, man. I'm just reading shit, and you're out here writing it? Dang! Yeah, if you send over some of your material, I might read it for a stream sometime or something like that. That might be nice. Okay. Well, you want to. Oh, I mean, if you're comfortable to do so, you can just send me a link or something to it, or I don't know how you'd send it to me, but somehow through something. I'd like to read it. That would be nice. The body is described within a biologically based framework and often regarded as a complex biological machine. Health and recovery is perceived as dependent on the body's physical existence and personality. It is accorded little emphasis when considering diagnosis and treatment. Admittedly, this perspective is stereotyped for the obvious reason that in its pure form it could not work in clinical practice. However, as we earlier noted as a basic model in ideal scientific rigor, it exerts considerable influence, and thus creates more or less a strong tension in the practice within two perspectives, to which now we turn. All good. Okay, so from that paragraph, we're sort of like given the perspective of sort of the healthcare that we're used to, judging from, I think, all of us, including me, are from Western societies. So we only really have like a biomedical perspective on health. And so that paragraph sort of explains medicine from a more impersonal perspective. It's more to do with like, hey, I am treating you, here is your treatment for your specific issue, off you go, sort of thing. Like they have a patient and physician relationship, but they described it as formalized and impersonal, meaning that you don't personally know your GP. It's more like, sorry, my stream is mirrored, and so I find it hard to tell which side my microphone is on. Okay, sorry about that. So we often see things from a more from an impersonal perspective when it comes to health. You have specialists who treats you, they give you medicine, and you get better. And that's essentially the entire format of health. You are treated like a machine which has specific parts that need to be fixed. They take parts out, they put parts in, they add oil to your machinery. That's how you are treated. You're treated as a mechanism more so than a person. Whereas the perspectives that we're going to look at in the later paragraphs focus more on the aspect that you are a person, and there are specific things about your socioeconomic background, your cultural background, and even just you preferably as a person, that you're unique to everyone around you, meaning that your preferred treatment may be different from everyone else who may be treated for a similar or the same issue. So that's something that we always need to take into consideration, and it's something that biomedical science often struggles with. We'll still work in some ways. I don't really understand a person's biology and maybe different others. Very much so. A lot of people's biology can be changed according to the lifestyle that they live and even what ethnicity they are. A good example of this is, for example, we try to measure people's well-being based on their weight, for example, whether they're obese or underweight, because those are both conditions which cause health complications. And so we measured them on something called the BMI scale. This BMI scale is specifically suited to individuals that are white, with a very basic framework. They base it on your age, your height, and whether you are male or female. It doesn't take into account that lots of different ethnicities have different healthy boundaries of how much body fat they have on their bodies, what is normal for them, and how much muscle, and even like reduced body fat. For example, people who are East Asian are typically smaller, but they also just have less body fat on average than those of other races. In contrast with that, you have other races which just have higher contents of body fat. For example, people who are who are more like Eastern European, or people, I think it also counts for those of African descent as well, where they just have different physiologies in general, which impact the way that the BMI scale reflects their actual health, and it's often warped. Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of nuance to people's health. Like you explained, it's very yes, no. It's very black and white. Either you're sick or you're not. There's no nuance to it. Yeah, just get to be ridiculed. Yeah, people prefer to stay in a more traditionalist scientific perspective than to branch out into like more socially nuanced ideals of health, and how specific people may have a specific idea or circumstance of what is healthy for them. And that's something that a lot of people aren't willing to come to terms with. Like, for example, someone may look like they are overweight or obese, but if somebody's just a little bit overweight and if they're eating the suitable amount of nutrition for themselves, the right amount of calories, there's nothing inherently wrong with them. Some people just have specific genetics which make them more likely to retain more body fat than others. I myself, for example, I lean a little bit more towards that category. So I know that I'm never going to have a petite body type, because that's just not the way that I am structured genetically. And I can see that throughout my entire family. I think the only person that comes close to having that really petite body type is maybe my sister. But when I look back on my mum and her mum and everything like that, it comes along with a very similar body type, which doesn't align with what people might expect to be healthy. Yeah, so it's very interesting. We have this very warped understanding of what's healthy and what isn't, and that anything outside of average is unhealthy, when that isn't specifically the case, especially in broad and diverse populations. Okay, rant over about diversity. We're moving on to the next paragraph. Okay, I'm going to take a little drink though, because I'm talking. And I don't want my vocal cords to die. Okay. Moving on to the next paragraph. It is called Phenomenological Perspective. Focus on the individual illness experience. Okay. The phenomenological perspective focuses on the individual illness experience. That is, the illness is a negative illness is negative bodily experiences as conceived by the person himself. Sexism. Themself. Thank you very much, Hoffman. Yeah, it was written in 2002. What do you mean by himself, little bitch? Gender-neutral language. Son of a gun. I don't know. That kind of thing just kind of angers me. I'm like, himself? Really? Are we all men here? Are we all men? Is everybody a man? Nah. Furious. Absolutely fuming. Okay, moving on. The concept of illness here involves action, choice, and interpretation. Yeah, I should definitely become a professor. Yeah, getting angry. Heck yeah, that's my passion, boy. I don't know about that. Definitely not. I don't know. I just prefer that gender-neutral language is used. It just reminds me of those doctor infomercials from the 50s, when at that point only men really went to medical school and studied medicine and became doctors. So every time they had an infomercial about doctors training and medicine and that sort of thing, they always used he/him language, male-orientated language, despite the fact that there would have been some female doctors that were still participating at that time, because women had gone to medical school and had become doctors at that point. They still insisted on using male-orientated language, despite the fact that not everyone in the medical field were dudes. Yeah, it was quite annoying. It just kind of discredited all the training which those female doctors had gone through, not to mention the scrutiny at that time, to get to the place that they are, only to sort of be erased by history. Yeah, I guess so. Using masculine assumption language has become a status symbol. You mean for the profession, or that it's... I don't entirely get what you mean by that. Is it just to say that it's a male-dominated field? But even if that's so, surely you'd have more inclusive language for people who are a part of that community who don't identify as male. You can refer to a hypothetical as masculine, means that you're good enough. Oh, that's kind of sad. Yeah, that's really sad. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Mm, yeah. Hello, sir. First time viewer. Hello. I bang nothing, thank you very much. It's not always me, I always say they. Yeah, I think you are. I think you're just saying like hypothetically from like from a more sort of like patriarchal perspective. I get what you mean. Yeah, I think I understand. My big brain trying to comprehend chat's knowledge right now. You guys are quite intelligent people, which is very interesting to see. It's great to have conversations like this. You're having it with like really good metaphors and hypotheticals. I'm very proud of you. Okay, I'm gonna be moving on to the next paragraph. Now you're just older, very true, but only like you're 4 years older than me. So I don't know. Uh, very true. I don't know. Even if it is just life experience, it is nice to know from somebody who is more experienced. Even if it is just life in general, it's fun to learn new things. And like you said, you are older, you have more life experience, and so therefore you're more likely to be more intelligent than me, as I have experienced less. So it's yeah, it's very nice to have people like express themselves, their own life experiences and that sort of thing. Ahaha. Ahaha. No. Fuck off. No. I meant this from a wholesome perspective. Quit ruining things. Stop ruining it. You're ruining it. No. I know you are. Stop it. Stop. I find it marginally uncomfortable. I was talking about something wholesome and you ruined it. Why did you have to do that? Can't I just talk about wholesome things with my chat for once without you turning it into something sexual? Why does it always have to be sexual? I'm talking about an academic paper, for fuck's sake. It always comes back to this. It always does. Stop, please. I want to have an adult conversation about comparisons of alternative medicines. Do you think Western countries have patriarchies? Yes, they do. They're just less obvious and yeah. Western countries do have patriarchies, but it's more to do with it's definitely more social now than it was, sorry. It's definitely more social now than it is in other countries which may be a little more behind socially. Like it's very obvious in very particular countries with like, oh, women can't go to school, women can't work because they're incompetent. There's a very obvious level of just discrimination there against women. It's always like women are less. Oh, thank you for the follow. It's very nice to have you here. Yes, so they're going to treat them less. Whereas in Western societies, because we're a little more forward-moving socially, we don't have those constructs anymore, which is great progress. But we still have the social norms surrounding very specific issues, such as sexual violence and that sort of thing. Very, very much orientated around specific issues and social issues. Yeah, it's more prevalent in private companies. Yeah, definitely. There's been several studies that have done that men are more likely to be promoted in certain positions and jobs than men, which is why when we talk about the pay gap between men and women, we don't mean that somebody's like, you're a woman, therefore we're going to pay you less. You have a different minimum wage. It's not obvious like that. It's about unconscious bias and giving specific job promotions to men over women because they expect them to perform better than them necessarily without any other thing to decide that. No, Western countries still have a patriarchy. It's just different. It's different and not as severe. It is still there. Sexism still exists in Western society. It definitely does. The reason why I feel unsafe to go outside right now is because I'm afraid that something's going to happen to me. Specifically because I am a woman And I don't think that's something that's going to change anytime soon. You love feminism? Good on you, mate. But yeah, like when you think about like what is a dude afraid of going outside at night? They might be afraid, or for example, if you ask a dude, why does he fear women, or why doesn't a man trust women? They might give like a series of answers to do with them either like lying, or some men will say, oh, makeup is very deceiving, or something like that. But women will say something far more severe. There's always that underlying level of I'm going to get hurt, because it has happened so often that I have the predisposed understanding that I am going to get hurt because I am the way that I am. Well, it's to do with that. It happens so often. Fucking sexual violence. Men attack women. Not all men. I'm not saying all men. But men attack women because they perceive them as weaker. They perceive them as objects. There is still an element of patriarchy in society, as well as the fact that I explained before that women are less likely to get promotions. They're more likely to be perceived as compliment, and people are less likely to use their credentials because they're perceived as stupid. It's just less obvious in Western society than it is in other parts of the world. Yeah, it's just, it may not be as obvious as something like not providing education, but acting as if like I'm menstruating is something that's optional for me, and not providing it like you would like any other healthcare is a form of discrimination. It's just less obvious and less serious. Hello, first-time chatters. Sorry, we're in a very serious discussion about feminism. I'm sorry if you just popped in for a casual stream. I'm going to get back to the article. Okay, I'm not the type of person to discuss this sort of thing on a more professional level. If you want someone to explain it to you, there are people which are more qualified than I am to explain it to you. I myself can only speak from personal experience and from what I've heard from other people. Someone who's like studied it, or people that have better examples, can probably give you better examples than I can. Okay. Like I said, I'm not a professional to any degree in most of the subjects that I'm going to be talking about. It is a very hard discussion because there is nuance. Patriarchy exists, but it's just not as severe as it is in other cultures and other societies, because there's a disproportionate amount of women also don't communicate. Yeah, women seem to. To women, this can seem like discrimination, but to men, it seems like they're unfit for a particular job. I don't think so. Like, when you look at. Really? I don't think so. I don't think that's the way that it should be perceived. It's more to do with unconscious bias. For example, like, what's your first interpretation of a woman that pops in your head? It's not typically somebody who is intelligent. It's not typically somebody who is strong. It's somebody that you'd view as like a nurturer, or somebody who is able to provide something else apart from intelligence. Yeah, I mean, men not being able to communicate with women, it isn't really our issue, especially if we're communicating in a coherent and concise manner. If men are just like, I can't communicate with women, they just communicate differently from mine. Half the population is made up of women. If you have an issue with communicating with women, and you find that to be the case with all women, maybe you should just learn to communicate with women. Instead of just being like, no, it's not fit, sorry, we're just going to like cut out the entire other half of the population because I personally can't be fucked to learn how to communicate with them. Despite the fact that they may be more qualified than the options that I have, because I feel like I'm more relatable to them somehow. It's just stupid. It's like going to a country and being like, well, none of you speak my language, so I'm not going to pick any of you. It's like, you're in the culture. You need to learn how to communicate with them. You need to learn how to relate to others and be able to understand that people see things from different perspectives. It's not all about, yes, why are we having to cater to men, for example? Why should I learn how to communicate like a man in order to get a job which I'm perfectly qualified for? That just seems completely unfair. especially if it's something that I can't help because I'm a woman and you think that we all communicate the same. It's just stupid. Okay. I need to continue reading this article. Women are incredibly rational. I can't tell if you're being sarcastic or not, dude. I can't tell. I can't tell. Okay, I'm gonna start from the top of the paragraph again. The concept of illness here involves action, choice, and interpretation. This is often described as the patient perspective or first-person perspective on health and illness. This implies that patients are perceived as acting subjects. That's not what I was saying. Dismiss what I said and insisted that men are needing to communicate to be in a particular way. I think it's called women. Oh, okay. Yeah, but okay. So the way that you think, the example you use often use feeling language, for example. But what about in professions that require, I think most professions require a level of emotional intelligence, though. So even in professions which require, like, that are mostly logic-based, as you're implying, there still needs to be some level of emotional care and development and that sort of thing. There's nothing inherently wrong with the way that women communicate. So are you saying that women need to change the way that they communicate to suit a men's working environment? Or are you saying that men need to learn to communicate with women better? I don't understand the point that you're making. Maybe because I'm stupid, but I may be using emotional language, but it's just because I'm trying to get the point across that I'm trying to understand what kind of point you're making. What do you want the solution to be to this particular issue? Do you want women to learn how to communicate like a man? Or do you want men to learn how to communicate with women? The feeling language isn't hidden to group cohesion. Not specifically. I think almost every field can use a level of emotional coherency. I think, yeah, almost every field has a level of emotional intelligence which is required. Like, for example, you may look at like a scientific field, like, for example, a laboratory clinic. Cohesion isn't necessarily. Exactly. It's about diversity. Yeah, like you're right. It's about diversity of thought, and it's also about some level of emotional intelligence. For example, scientists back in laboratory clinics, they need to learn some sense of empathy and emotional intelligence and being able to communicate with the people on the other end of the line of their experiments. You're still being dismissed. What do you mean by dismissed? I'm analyzing what you're saying and trying to understand it. Do you want by accept? How do you want me to approach your argument? Do you want me to just agree with you? Is that what you're saying? I understand your perspective in saying that there are some logical fields which would require a greater level of logical thinking than they would with emotional thinking. But I think they require both to some capacity, and that's assuming that all women communicate emotionally, which inherently isn't true. Yeah, I'm skeptical of what you're saying. I'm not dismissing what you're saying. I'm just skeptical of it. Okay, just what's your example? That might help me to understand it a bit better if there is a point that you're trying to get across. Okay, it's going to take a little while. You read through the article? Good on you. Nice job. You're doing better than I am. Okay. In the meantime, while you're typing out your example, okay, so from what you've said so far, in the way that men need them to. So I guess in specific situations you are requiring a logic solution, but it's sort of implying that women are incapable of coming up with logical solutions when that's just kind of inherently untrue. Women might be more biased to thinking from a more emotional or empathetic perspective, but that doesn't mean that they're incapable of providing logical answers to specific issues, if that's the form of communication that you're talking about. Yeah, but in it seems, yeah, in specific fields you are insisting that men need to be communicated with in a certain way. But maybe what you're trying to say is that in specific fields there's a biased form, like there's a form of communication generally which is more appropriate for that circumstance. If that's what you're trying to say, I completely agree with you. But to what capacity are women worse at that than men are? Obviously, it's hard to have this discussion when you're typing and I'm speaking, but it's like, this is a long example that you're typing out. I had to read 4 papers on race in America today. Oh, that's interesting. I don't know too much about that subject as I don't live in America. From a field called critical race theory. Oh, that's interesting. So I guess it just looks into racial bias and the history of it. That's incredibly interesting. Yeah, in my country, our general history with our native peoples isn't very long. So, yeah, our history with our peoples isn't very long, meaning that the way that the form of racism which takes on in our country is quite obvious, and like we can obviously see what it dates back to and how it's similar to a lot of other discrimination with similar areas. The main idea is that we should look at race as something socially constructed as opposed to genetically dictated. Yeah, definitely. There's a large component of race which is socially constructed. I completely agree with you. Sort of the form that someone might ethnic. Okay. Reading example. Suppose a group all agree to respect each other's educated opinions on some matter. Each is tasked with considering the pros and cons of some situation. When the men are asked to share their thoughts, they say, I think X, and give some of their ideas. Okay. I'll wait for the rest of it because it's probably not a complete example. Okay. Okay. Um, I think I have an idea of what the next part of the example is going to be, but women often guard their feelings if they share an idea with I feel that anything disagreeing with can seem like their feelings aren't being considered. Is it very objective? No, not really. Well, it's because it depends on the issue in which you're discussing. Like this, there's a study that Mm, seems like the middle section didn't post. Okay. Okay. It's an interesting perspective to choose from. I think everybody's going to give their opinions to some extent. Like everyone's going to defend their opinions, no matter if you like leave the sentence with something more logical, if you present it from a more logical perspective. Respecting somebody's opinion doesn't necessarily mean that you have to agree with them. That's a whole part of it. You can disagree with somebody's opinion, and you can still guard your opinion. Some people are more defensive of their opinions than others, but this isn't necessarily specific to both men and women. Yeah, so it's not necessarily specific to gender. There are generally just people that use more feeling-based language, as you say, and some people who use more objective-based language, like also that you're saying in terms of men and women. It may be more common, because I'm going to take this lozenge out of my mouth because it's distracting me. Okay. Someone do this too. If someone chooses to use I feel, and it's often a problem in practice because if someone says I think and they're making themselves open to being wrong and they're offering an idea, not necessarily, because when someone says I feel, what they're portraying isn't necessarily, it's an opinion. An opinion, opinions can't be right or wrong. They can be criticized, but opinions themselves aren't necessarily right or wrong because someone isn't considering their facts or knowledge surrounding a certain situation. I guess you said before that was an educated opinion that they were displaying, but it's still nonetheless an opinion, meaning that all opinions can be criticized to some extent. Some people find it harder to take criticism than others. I completely agree with you, but I don't think that's specific to both men and women, at least from my perspective, at least. You're offering an idea of which they acknowledge can be mistaken. Oh yes, opinions can be interpreted in many different ways. That's why they're called opinions. Like, for example, if you had two people who were doing maths, you won't say, I feel that the equation is this. Nobody does that. You're speaking inherently from an opinionated point of view, which is going to carry some weighted emotional feelings to it. You can't have an inherently logical argument about opinions because everyone's going to have a different perspective on it. People who are emotional should be in medical construction and finance. I mean, with medicine, no, I don't think so, because you do need some emotional empathy to accompany medicine. I can kind of agree with construction and finance, just because it isn't an essential component of it. Just because you're emotional doesn't mean that you should participate in these fields. It just means that it won't contribute positively to it, or like at all. It just would be redundant. But for example, if you're an emotional person, but you're incredibly good at mathematics, then yeah, go into finance. You're not going to get emotional over fucking numbers. When you're communicating with people, that's when you need to have good control of your emotions, but having emotional intelligence is perfect. If you can't agree that 5 times 6 is 30 because you don't feel like it should, then there should be a problem. There are some fields which are highly based in logic and aren't opinionated, like mathematics, for example. There are theories in high academic mathematics which you can have opinions on, specific use of what, but those are still opinions, and you can have emotional basis for opinions because they're opinions. They're not facts. They're not research. I'd rather have an unemotional surgeon than an emotional one. Yeah, I mean, would you rather have a surgeon that talks to you and like just gives you all the facts, gives it to you, then just walks away? Or would you rather have someone able to emotionally support you, somebody that's able to coach you through, somebody able to display some level of empathy? Emotions aren't necessarily redundant. Surgeons are still practitioners at heart. They still need to be able to communicate with their patients and display some of empathy. There are even tests which people have to take which display this level of empathy and being able to communicate with your patients. Yes, you do need a competent patient. I'm not arguing that a surgeon that provides empathetic support is incompetent. You can be both competent and have emotional intelligence. Exactly. It doesn't mean that the surgeon's going to break down crying in the middle of a surgery. Somebody who's able to provide emotional support and be able to have an empathetic point of view and be able to make you comfortable, be able to make you less anxious about the experience that you're about to go through is essential to medicine. I can understand, like, valuing their competence over something else is a very intelligent thing to do. All I'm saying is that emotional intelligence isn't something which should be ignored either. Because let's just say you have two surgeons, both of which are competent to the same capacity. But you have one that's very cold, one that doesn't really care. They say, I'm going to perform the surgery, whether you like it or not. I'm going to do it this way. I'm going to do it well. And they put you under, essentially. Or you can have someone that talks to you about these issues, is able to calm you down, is able to empathize with your situation and validate your concerns surrounding it and be able to assure you properly. And you have to have a level of emotional intelligence in order to do that. Having an unemotional surgeon, or any practitioner for that matter, just isn't great. But why would you choose the unemotional and competent surgeon? Given that the emotional surgeon, like the level that they're emotional to does not affect their competency. So would you want somebody that inherently doesn't have any emotional intelligence? Even if they were rude to me. Okay. I mean, but what if you're in a situation where you're incredibly anxious about it? What if you go into a surgery and you're like, I don't know about this. I'm afraid of going under. I don't know if I'm going to wake up. I have all these worries about the results of the surgery. The surgery isn't definite. You don't know whether it's going to succeed or not because it's risky. You need somebody who's able to communicate with you and coach you through it and help you with that. Somebody who's actually performing the surgery. Somebody who's in control. And you need to have somebody who's able to empathize with you in that position of power and control in order for you to feel secure. And helping somebody relieve their stress and anxiety is an essential part of being a surgical and medical practitioner. There are tests and studies and classes and stuff that teach surgeons to have this level of empathy towards their patients because it's a matter of professionalism. It's not them being emotional, it's about being able to have a degree of emotional intelligence. It's a difference between somebody that has a high level of like their being themselves, they're an emotional person. I don't know. I don't think being emotional is necessarily a bad thing. And it really varies on the certain circumstances. Yeah, it's not about emotion. Emotion isn't a factor that enters surgery. I think that, yeah, exactly. It depends on a lot of factors. I completely agree. It's not all about competency. There are lots of factors that go into level surgeries. And if you're anxious and extremely worried going to a surgery in that state, it's less likely to be successful. You don't say that it's not necessarily a bad thing. And especially in medicine, you have to be empathetic towards your patients. It's something that you need to take into consideration. I mean, if it's just a personal preference that you wouldn't want someone who's able to empathize with you, and I guess that's a personal preference. But in terms of the profession of medicine, they are taught to be able to have emotional intelligence to the people that they are treating, to be able to communicate with them in a way that makes them calm, makes them reassured about about the treatment that they're going to be undertaking. Because you are effectively treating their well-being. This is what we're talking about in the article. It's about being able to reassure them, not just that they will be okay physically, but that their anxieties will be laid to rest and that you're going to do a good job and that you understand that they're worried, but you can reassure them without making them upset, which would delay the surgery even further, perhaps, or cause complications down the line, or even cause you to trust you less. you need to develop this level of trust and empathy with your patients because it's the only way that they're going to be able to stick by you. You need to make a relationship. In order to do that, you need to have emotional intelligence. Emotions are extremely important and integral to relationships. And it's something that we should be able to express. For some people, it's difficult, of course, but medicine is definitely not a field that requires all logic and no emotion because you're forming relationships with your patients. Obviously, in surgery, that's less so than others. You're going to have less time with the patients than other practices, but there's still a degree of emotional intelligence and relationship intelligence that you need to establish. And to do that, you need to have some degree of empathy and emotion when dealing with these people. If you're a robot that they can't relate to, they're probably not going to trust you. And not trusting your practitioner is only going to lead to terrible things. Yeah, we can have a difference of opinion no matter how long I talk about this, and you're just going to have that opinion. That's fine, but I'm just expressing my own opinion in that I think emotion is intelligent, and that being emotionally intelligent isn't constricted to men and women. Maybe in your mind you may have seen more people who are emotionally constricted in the form of women because women statistically are better at expressing their emotions, because of the constraints that men are put under by society, that emotions aren't important, that you need to stuff them down, that being emotional is a feminine trait, and being feminine is bad. Yeah, so people view women as hysterical and emotional, definitely. I don't think you're viewing them as hysterical, I think you're just viewing them as more emotional, but I don't think that's inherently true either. I don't think that you have a bad perspective on women in general, and that I don't think you inherently think that being emotional is bad either, but I still think that that's true. I wouldn't trust the competence of a surgeon who was emotionally empathetic as much as I would trust a surgeon who could present data and answer questions. Or presenting answer. Okay, I gotta finish the opinion first. Okay, that's more important to me. If I'm about to have a surgery and there's a chance that I could die, I want to focus on relevant data instead of feelings. You can both equally convey data with a patient and have an emotional relationship with them. Being able to calm somebody down who is in an anxious mindset. I don't think I'm very charismatic, but thank you. But being able to convey that data in a way that the person can understand, especially in a highly emotional state that they would probably be in, especially if they're anxious before such a life-changing event, would be incredibly helpful for them processing that data and information that they'd be providing. I'm not saying that they'd solely provide emotional care. It's about providing that emotional relevance. I never said I had an anxious mindset, but I'm saying theoretically if you were anxious about the surgery, having somebody who is able to relate to you and convey the data in a way that you found relevant. Where are you getting as anxious as? Because people are anxious before surgery. People don't generally just hop into a surgery like, well, I'm going to have a surgery today. It's life-changing. It can cause a lot of anxieties because often it doesn't go well. There's a lot of anxiety surrounding surgery. I'm going to say that almost the majority of people that go into a surgery are anxious about it to some degree, especially if it's their first time doing something like that. I think if the first time of doing anything, you're going to be anxious about it, especially if it's something which could potentially kill you. Even if you are in competent hands, that risk is still going to make you anxious. People going into surgery are generally not gung-ho about getting it in the first place either. Some people might be happy about it, of course, that yes, it's going to solve my issues, but the act of surgery itself, I can understand, or from what I understand, is a very emotional and life-changing experience. Doctors themselves understand, and they need to communicate their data and information and reassurance in a way that an emotional person is able to understand. In order to do that, you need to establish a relationship and have some degree of empathy, which is essentially the epitome of emotional intelligence. Having empathy is essential for most positions which involve you communicating with people. And it's essential for being able to communicate with people in general outside of a professional setting. So, yeah, emotional intelligence is extremely important. Yeah. I'm sorry if I've been rambling on for ages, but this is I can't stress this enough, especially in the field of medicine. We are talking with people that are upset, people that are concerned for their health, people that are scared. Maybe that's coming from maybe you specifically. If you don't think you'd be anxious in that situation, I can completely understand. I mean, the concept of a robot doing it, robots can do things with like fine tune without any error. That kind of makes sense, and I can understand where you're coming from in wanting that level of reassurance, that level of competency, and a robot can definitely do that for you. But if it's in a risky, but we don't have robots right now that can perform things to extreme position, like to extreme precision, sorry. We don't have that right now. We have people that can perform surgeries. Yes, there are some surgeries that can be performed remotely by robotics, but it's still being performed by a person. And you, a person, are going under the knife in a position which is potentially volatile, and you need to think about that. It's valueless to me. I mean, you have family, don't you? Like, for example, if you have a younger sibling or something, or if you ever looked after children, they run around and they fall over and they scrape their knee. And they fall over and they're hurt, they're hysterical. But you need to be able to, like, you can't just say, right, we're going indoors, we're going to put a bandage on you, we're going inside. That won't work with somebody who's hysterical and injured. You need to find a way to communicate with them to make the treatment more effective. Like, for example, you could coax the child. You could say, hey, I know that it hurts right now, but do you want to get this sorted out? We need to make sure that you're going to be okay, because if you remain here, that's only going to hurt more. And I understand that you're in pain. I understand that you're going through something because I went through the same thing. But I need you to come inside with me so that I can help you. It's that level of coming down to their level and being able to show them that level of empathy and understanding that allows them to have the most effective treatment, the way that they're able to trust you. And trust is a major component of medicine. Being able to hold the attention of the person that you're communicating with, being able to reassure them that that they're going to be okay, even if that isn't necessarily the case. Because the mind is a very powerful thing, and the way that we communicate with each other is inherently emotional. That's just simply how humans are. What makes us human, what makes us living, breathing people is our emotions. Yeah. Okay, I've gone on a big rant. I've gone philosophical now. I'm just saying that any at all profession which provides you to communicate with people, especially people who are in distress, requires some level of empathy, and that's where I'll leave it, because I need to finish this heckin' article. I need to finish the heckin' article. I think most people, to be honest with the statistics, the greatest. Yeah, I mean, people would like, but that's also a form of reassurance, knowing that you're more statistically going to end up on the other side with something. Like, that's a form of reassurance. You're like, oh yes, this robot's going to do this. Yeah. Maybe describing reasoning is a good example of what I'm talking about. It comes to group cohesion, for example. Right, army platoon, it's the opposite effect. Oh yeah, but in an army platoon, for example, okay, please continue the article. Okay. I'll just quickly comment on the last sentence very, very quickly before I jump into the article, because I just don't want to leave it like that. It looks great, but in an army platoon, okay, I understand that. If it's like in if it's in a do or die situation, I can understand. And that's why they have special codes and stuff to communicate information efficiently. That's why they have hand signals, and that's why yelling is efficient, because it's in a do or die situation. I can completely understand that. Thank you for following. Thank you. Yeah, I can completely completely understand having to like view things from like a very stern perspective, especially in an emergency situation. But yeah, I don't think there aren't that many professions which have the same level of urgency and emergency without having these people with like this level of hysteria like you do in armies, for example. They're learnt to shut down their emotions on the battlefield because it isn't inherently helpful because they're taught to fight. That's a very specific instance in which emotions wouldn't specifically be helpful. But for most professions which require talking to people, emotional intelligence is inherently helpful. So I understand where you're coming from and being able to convey information in a concise manner. Class with no script. Being able to convey information in a precise manner, I can understand requires a good level of like logical communication and that sort of thing, which, yeah. So I completely understand the perspective you're talking about. I just think it's entirely relevant to the topic of medicine. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. Okay. I'm so sorry. I kept on rambling. Okay, where am I up to? Okay, I'm going to read from this sentence. This implies that the patient are perceived as acting subjects, reacting to their illness through interpretations formed by earlier experiences and those they interact with. Epistemologically, understanding the patient's illness is considered to rely on the patient's own experience-based knowledge. We understand experience to be the total sum of a person's perception of something being wrong in the body and his or her cognitive reflections and emotional response to this. Okay. In phenomenology, the lived body is essential. According to Turner in 1995, phenomenology attempts an exploration of the relationship between the objective and instrumental body, the body as nature, and the subjective living body, the lived body. Okay, let's look at the chat. Yeah, I want to respond to what you guys are saying. I don't think you want me to ignore you. Okay, Turner refers to the philosopher Merleau-Ponty and outlines very interestingly how a body in the life world of phenomenology, sees the body as access to the world, which in this approach in return creates and affects the body in different ways. That is so dope. Okay, I'm going to continue reading. Which in this approach return creates, such coexistence involves an open communicative situation in which the boundaries between self and others are perceived as interwoven in relation with the biological body. Later describes how this phenomenological approach, how it works, does not so much replace the biological account as placed within the border's perspective. Anatomy and physiology of the lived body are always intertwined with the person's intentionality in ways that undermine facile claims of priority, such as our physical structure lays the groundwork for our mode of being in the world. So our interactions with the world fall back and reshape our body in ways conducive to health and illness, and medicine of the lived body dwells in its intertwining. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way of putting it. That's so nice. Okay, I'm going to continue on. The next paragraph is called Sickness, Focus on the Social Context. Okay, so the last one that we just looked at is sort of viewing health from like an interwoven perspective. You're viewing it from the perspective in which mental health. Sir, stop. Fucking hell, I knew this would happen. The moment I wear something which is remote. Okay, fucking hell. I'm buttoning up my shirt. I don't trust you. I don't fucking trust you. God, you guys are the worst. You guys are the fucking worst. I can't be comfortable in my own home because of you. No, fuck you. You're not getting any boobs. You're getting nothing. Fuck you. I'm moving on. However, there seems to be a close between illness as the unique subjective experience and sickness as the socially mediated, understanding and acting the results from and also shapes the illness experience. A social context is, so to speak, incorporated by the experiencing subject. Please, I'd rather not be sexually harassed on my own stream, guys. I'd rather you not comment on this sort of thing. I'm reading an academic article. I don't need you talking about my tits right now. Okay. Social context, so to speak, such as understanding the concept of experience is inspired by theorists such as Alfred Schutz, and especially by John Dewey, as they both take on the social and subjective worlds of human agency as the point from which a notion of experience should be developed. Illness is the social constructivist perspective negotiated in the social space, typically in the doctor-patient relationship, but also in family, among friends, and at the working place. Many social constructivists in the field of medical sociology have expressed a strong critique of biomedicine in the biomedical perspective, along the lines mentioned above. In return, the constructivist perspective has been criticized for implying that the world and the body and the disease within it becomes waste or conflated with our discursive constructions. I would rather die standing than live on my knees. So it wasn't necessary for you to say. As much as I'm joking about it, it does inherently make me uncomfortable for you to say stuff like that. I mean, I understand that stuff sort of comes with being a female Twitch streamer, and I understand that. But yeah, I have experienced like in-person sexual harassment in my life, and I'd rather not have to deal with it in the presence of my own home. Okay. I may be taking this a bit too seriously, but it still affects me to some capacity. Not as much as it does in real life, but you know, it still hurts. And also is the social constructivist perspective negotiated in the social space, typically in the doctor-patient relationship, but also in family and among friends, and at the workplace. Many social constructivists in the field of medical sociology. Oh, sorry, I've already read all of that. Yeah, it kind of just is. I mean, I still have a lot of fun, like having this whole debate. Like, even if it did get heated at some points and it did like get a bit out there, it was still fun to have those kinds of discussions, which is what I like about Twitch. All the in the chat over 18. I mean, as far as I know, yes. I mean, one of them's an author, and the other one claims to be 22. So as far as I know, they are. Yeah, there's a lot of good and bad Twitch here, definitely. And it's not really something that I can avoid. Yeah, especially since the majority of people that come through like comment on something like that to that capacity anyway. It's not the worst thing that I've experienced, but it's like I'd rather it be avoided, especially with like people that want to return and want to listen to what I say and like want to continue to watch my streams. It's just something that I generally want to construct a rapport with my audience with the things that I'm comfortable and not comfortable with, because I know that probably you as people don't want to make me feel uncomfortable because you have empathy and you don't want me to feel upset. Yeah, so I think I can trust you guys to some extent, but it's like, yeah, there's like a line between like joking about like that kind of thing and actually meaning it, I guess. Okay. Furthermore, critics point out that there could be a discursive determinism in relation to the meaning of the biological body. If everything is reduced to the social as power or knowledge, sickness may thus be defined as negative bodily occurrences as conceived by the society and/or its institutions. We are inclined to see illness and the sickness. From which journal is this article you're reading? Does it say the journal with the title card? I sent this in the chat earlier, but I think this was before you arrived. Yeah, it's from the journal Sage, spelled like S-A-G. Yeah, I aren't even reading the article. Yeah, it's okay. I can. What is this? Hello, newcomer. Does not care about her ideas. What do you mean? Like, I don't care about. Hello? Okay. Well, anyway, here's the links to the article if you want to like more specific detail about it. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna continue reading. Oh, sorry. Okay. Okay. No, it's okay. It's fine. Two sides of the same coin, mutually dependent and closely interacting. Hello, new person. I'm reading an academic article. If I didn't already answer your question, feel free to sit back and listen if you want to. Or I did just post a link there if you want to read along. We're currently on page 363. Okay, for heuristic purposes, they may be held apart. Disease and illness or sickness, differences in treatment context and healthcare needs is the title of the next paragraph. Much argues that the mind-body dichotomy should be replaced by a more unified conception of human beings. It remains remarkably insistent to such attempts. It can be recognized to notions like psychosomatic and plays tricks with the clinical encounters, when no organic devices are discovered, but the patient has an overwhelming illness experience. Because of this dualistic foundation of clinical experience, it is essential that those who attempt to heal persons experiencing unhealth are aware of the epistemologically contrary understandings of the illness of the nature of illness/disease. Sorry, just read the abstract. It's like people think they're sick, but they're not actually sick. Patient initiated. Oh no, it's more about the comparisons between biomedicine and alternative medicine, in the way that they treat their patients, in the way that it's like patient directed, in the way it's like the way that that patients interact with it. So you'd go over concepts of like biomedicine. Yeah, so like the difference between biomedicine and alternative medicine. Yeah, biomedicine is sort of like, the scientific hospital sort of based medicine that we're mostly familiar with. And then alternative medicine is like homeopathy or immunology, as someone in this chat has previously stated, or acupuncture, and that sort of thing. Or even like herbal remedies could be counted as something like alternative medicine. I mean, it doesn't necessarily not work. I mean, it just doesn't necessarily have a lot of scientific backing behind it. Like acupuncture, for example, does work and has had studies done on it, and it does work to some capacity. It depends. You can't just put you can't put a blanket over all alternative medicines and say that all don't work. Scientific? No, it means like there's no scientific. It doesn't say there's no proof that it doesn't work, because there have been studies that have been conducted by the scientific community that state that it does work. They don't understand. Your doctors are scientists, yes, and they conduct the study on the alternative medicine, and it shows, yes, it does help in this capacity. It does help alleviate pain, whether it's to the person in particular, or it releases certain hormones or endorphins, which help with pain relief. Yes, alternative medicine, it depends on the alternative medicine and the way that you're approaching it. Let me finish learning. Yeah, it depends on the alternative medicine. It depends on the way that you're approaching it. Because yes, if you're approaching alternative medicine as something that no doctor will advise as regular medicine. Actually, some doctors do advise that you take acupuncture as an alternative form of like pain medication. Yeah, definitely. It works in tandem with one another. Having one or like the other isn't essential. It's good to have different types of healthcare, ones that may care for you more holistically, like alternative care, and ones that help with your specific issues, like biomedical care. Yeah. One works and the other might. Yeah, biomedicine helps with your symptoms and it may help with your specific issue, but any mental issues that might be occurring alongside the issue that might be happening, or like your general health and surrounding that issue may also be affected. Biomedicine sort of like as I've explained, like biomedicine is like the Western way of dealing with health. It's sort of like the hospitals, doctors, and that sort of thing. You see a psychiatrist. Well, you can see a psychologist. There are different ways of doing therapy. Like you might go to a psychiatrist to get diagnosed with certain issues, but there have been alternative ways to help with mental health and specific therapies, which may not be, oh, you have this medication, or oh, you have to undergo this specific treatment. It's more like as these therapies, which are more abstract and help with your overall well-being. It allows you to enhance your well-being and prevent you from having these sorts of issues in the future, especially since well-being or health promotion in a clinical setting can be quite disheartening or foreign to a lot of people. So having somebody that is able to, yeah, I agree with you here. It's like having something, being able to be in a position in which you're able to communicate with the person and enhance your well-being, is it that without necessarily being biomedicine is also essential. Medications last resort. Okay, I agree with you on that. I'm going to continue reading because people are getting frustrated that I'm not actually focusing on the article, instead resorting to discussion. I enjoy discussion, but I do need to get on with the article. Okay. Okay. Where was I up to? Okay, I think we can start from there. He argued that it is of crucial importance in future education and clinical practice to emphasize that the task is to deal with biological processes or disease as well as mental phenomena, interpretations, experiences, or illnesses in their social cultural contexts or sickness. Okay, I'm just going to continue reading. You might learn something from the article, more so than me, because I'm not exactly a professional on the matter. It must be understood the classical divide between biomedical focus on disease and cure and the phenomenological/social focus on life with illness does not necessarily represent a problem. Both experiencing and treating acute illnesses are clearly different from experiencing and treating chronic states. From the patient perspective, problems occur when such differences in time frames and context are not acknowledged. The attention of patients living with chronic illness is often turned from treatment and cure to management and care. From a sociological perspective, this development illustrates how medical doctors and clinical encounters, as well as public healthcare systems, have to approach many patients' lay perspectives on health, illness, and treatment. As this interest is obviously of strong relevance for diagnosis, treatment, and care, and for the organization of healthcare systems. Yeah, okay. Thanks for the example. Some scholars within the alternative medicine field strongly argue that it is such epistemological gaps, such as those we have described in the biomedical and the phenomenological and social perspectives on health and illness, do not exist. Instead of differences in perspectives, they focus on healthcare as a complex, pluralistic, and as it is constantly changing. This may be mainly a question of how concepts are used. Selden, on 2004, posits that the domestication of alternative medicine over the last few decades has been followed by a process of cultural negotiation in which the dominant narrative of biomedicine, as well as that of alternative medicine, changed. and that alternative medicine has become fashionable as a part of the postmodern spectacle of the body and has developed into new means of medical surveillance. Various understandings of alternative medicine's epistemological position exist, strongly influenced by factors such as culture, context, and the characteristics of the various alternative medicine modalities. And as we have noted, alternative medicine is an extremely heterogeneous phenomenon, which makes it hard to generalize about. However, we insist that there is still a considerable epistemological differences between alternative medicine and the biomedically based public healthcare systems in Western countries. Alternative medicine is in general associated with more holistic and in the sense of taking factors into account, approach illness, which again can be linked with phenomenological and social understanding of health and illness. What can phenomenological and social perspectives on health and illness add to medical education and clinical practice is the name of the next section of the article. Healthcare users and healthcare systems are constantly changing, often in directions not foreseen by public health authorities. The encounter between lay experiences and medical knowledge for analytical purposes can be described as a potential clash between biomedical and phenomenological/social understandings of health and illness. We consider Western patients' widespread use of alternative medicine to be an interesting example of the postmodern trend towards a plurality of objective discourses and illness behaviors. I would say that public health providers always know where the problem is. It's just a lack of money. Not necessarily. There are a large portion of people who go to a GP, like a general practitioner, and about 30% of what they go there for is generally undiagnosed. And that's simply because we're viewing it from a purely symptomatic perspective. Yes, there may be an underlying illness, which they need to assess in a more professional and specialized point of view, but their immediate response to somebody being unwell is like, there are these drugs which can treat your symptoms, but not necessarily the core of the issue. Whereas even simple lifestyle changes may be enough to influence and promote health and prevent these minor issues from occurring. Like these lifestyle changes, which are often promoted by people in Eastern and alternative medicine. So it may not always be the case that Eastern medicine is right, but it's always something that needs to be considered. Well, the core of the issue, if you know what's going on, biomedicine is very effective in treating core issues. But in terms of every doctor will tell you to be healthy first. Where are you? Sorry, I don't appreciate you talking to me like that. No. Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'm just going to continue. Okay. No, it's okay. I don't mind discussing this sort of thing. It just sort of came out of nowhere. Yeah, being healthy is not medical advice, I completely agree, but certain lifestyle choices can change a lot of outcomes for specific people. And putting in that time and as advice as opposed to medical care Yes, right now we know not necessarily. There are a lot of things that people still don't know. You may be informed about what is healthy and what is not, but a lot of people still aren't. And that's still something that we need to focus on, and being able to educate people on what is healthy and what is not. Sorry, and a lot of people still don't know how to handle their mental care and that sort of thing. So being able to have somebody that can allow you to build that. Sorry, I'm struggling a little bit. Be able to view the world from a more philosophical perspective, which Eastern medicine can still do. It depends on Eastern medicine. That stuff has been studied by cultures for thousands of years. Yeah, you lived in Vietnam for 4 years. That's good. But you can still admit that Eastern medicine still has some degree of care that goes into it. Yeah, there's a rich culture which comes from that. And there isn't... There's not some... I don't know. I've never been to Vietnam. It could be right. Their culture could just be entirely eating vegetables and rice. But I'm sure there's more complexity to that, and there's certainly things that they can share with people, a different perspective that they can help people to realize you don't live in the same lifestyle that they do. Yeah, and that's sort of what I'm trying to get at. Different types of medicine can offer different perspectives. Oh, that's okay. It just gave me a shock is all. I can just get back into it. The sooner I get back into the article, the better. The sooner I forget about it. So, yeah, I just need to calm down for a bit. Yeah. Okay, I'll continue to read. Okay, I'll get back into it. All right, let's fight on. Sorry. Okay. Um, what was I up to? Mm-hmm. Okay. The increasing use of alternative medicine during the last few decades to some extent can be perceived as a patient critique of public healthcare systems and the biomedical perspective on health and illness. It may also be perceived as an orientation towards a more individualized and experience-based understanding. It has been argued that the widespread interest in the use of alternative medicine indirectly contributes to the foundation of a person-centered medicine, where the unique person is positioned in the center of healthcare and the therapeutic process. In a phenomenological perspective, symptoms of a disease are always interpreted through the lens of a person's individual life story. His or her memories, hopes, fears, beliefs, and desires. They are of course also partially socially formed. From this perspective, illness reaches deep into our lives, raising questions and interpretations that may move beyond scientific explanations. Was one of Antofsky, no, they're referring to Castle, sorry. Castle was one of the first to point out the inherent weakness of the predominating physical epistemology, Suffering is experienced by persons, not merely by bodies, and its source and challenges that threatens the intactness of the person as a complex social and psychological entity. Suffering can elude physical pain, but it is by no means limited to it. The relief of suffering and the cure of disease must be seen as twin obligations of the medical profession that is dictated to the care of the sick. No, it's okay. I don't really want to I wouldn't really know how to manage people being mods and that sort of thing. So I think I might leave it at that. Like I'll leave myself to handle it for now. But yeah, hopefully I'll be better at handling it next time. Okay. Another example of such an approach to healthcare is this salutogenic thinking, which focuses on man's complete history, including disease and coping resources that can contribute to better health and well-being. When people face a diagnosis, they will, in Antovsky's perspective, also see an understanding of the existential meaning of disease. Furthermore, Antovsky claims that a person with a sense of coherence, of a high degree of autonomy, and be orientated toward new knowledge. He or she will take what happens to his or her body and health as a challenge and try and master it. Antonovsky also points to the fact that medical knowledge is constantly changing and introduces a hypothesis that a sense of coherence may have some psychological consequences. Sorry. He thus asks whether research in sorry, it's just a long word. Psychoneuroimmunology may assist in understanding the biological processes through which the sense of coherence influences health. The widespread and continuing use of alternative medicine in many Western countries has been explained in terms of self-care and holistic approaches to health and illness. Furthermore, alternative medicine has been interpreted as a counter-trend against biomedicalization and a contribution to personalization and prevention of illness. Antonovsky claims that in order for patients in public health care to experience control that their own efforts can make a difference, a patient's active approach has to be socially valued. He challenges public healthcare systems and requests doctors to ask themselves whether they promote a positive or negative development in the sense of coherence. Link a salutogenic focus on alternative medicine education and argue for several potential benefits of salutogenic education, also in public healthcare, such as more efficient healthcare with reduced cost and healthier and happier healthcare professionals. On the contrary, Antonovsky argues that the possibility that there may be knowledge and treatment approaches outside the public healthcare system can be impetus for further action and give a feeling of control that personal efforts can affect the outcome of the disease. Other sociologists argue that the alternative medicine disempowers the individual, and the growth of alternative medicine represents a paradigmatic shift from biomedicine that is not positive. Alternative medicine, for instance, can be perceived as an aspect of the postmodern medicalization trend, where people seek help for any signs of unhealth. Antonovsky also points out a possible risk of introducing the salutogenic model of health into public health care, because making everything in a person's life medically relevant can increase medicalization and social control of people. We argue that the patient perspective should be better integrated into public health care. Oh, sorry, I skipped the title of that paragraph. The title of the next paragraph is The Need for Complementary Epistemologies in Future Public Healthcare. We argue that the patient perspective should be better integrated into public healthcare in medical education. Biomedical, phenomenological, and social knowledge is crucial to meet a patient's healthcare needs. The epistemologies that form the basis of biomedical and hermeneutic or phenomenological perspective should thus be combined and even integrated into the public healthcare and education in the future. Such an endeavor has the potential to contribute substantially to the reduction and prevention of suffering due to disease, and the three perspectives should be perceived as complementary rather than contradictory approaches in clinical encounters in education, such as coexistence, opens up a possibility to make patients more content with their encounters. When ill, making diagnosis more accurate and treatment more efficient. Such potentials yet to carry out may also represent important resources to strengthen the quality of education for healthcare professionals. We also must handle the complex meeting between so-called person-centered care and highly specialized biomedical treatment. It has also been argued that personalized care still seems to be out of reach in modern Western public healthcare systems. And that one more important reason for this poorly understood tension between personalized and professional goals of care that are inherent to professionalism and specialization. The professional duty and shared decision-making process will thus be to translate patients' personal goals into goals that are realistic professional goals. It is also of crucial importance to approach the question of whether this may inadvertently lead us to an unjustifiably broad understanding of the tasks of medicine, and to discuss and develop ethically based constraints to avoid further medicalization. If the ideals heavily emphasized in recent Western white papers are to be taken seriously, we need to actively reflect over existing epistemologies in education and clinical practice. Phenomenological and social perspectives may add important knowledge to strength and person-centered healthcare. Our biomedical perspectives may remind us that human beings belong to both nature and culture, and that biology may restrict social actions and aspirations, such as patient involvement and shared decision-making. Integration of alternative medicine in hospitals within healthcare systems is increasing in practice, although not much discussed on a system level. Evaluation of integration initiatives have discussed paradigmatic clashes. Maybe it's paradigmatic? Okay, I'm just going to continue on. Clashes as well as the practical challenges. Situations where there is a clash between personal goals and professional care goals, such as when cancer patients decide to use alternative treatments, only will remain an ethical and practical dilemma to health professionals. A relevant question is how lay, the person collective knowledge on which many users of public health care and alternative medicine base their treatment decisions actually is. A relevant question is how lay, the personally collected knowledge on which many users of public health care and alternative medicine base their treatment decisions actually is. A medical health study reveals that lay theories, perceptions, and explanations are constructed and negotiated in an increasingly plural and complex environment of knowledge. Patients may themselves become experts in heterogeneous, context-specific dimensions of knowledge. Some of them, but indeed not all, may be described as explorers of healthcare, irrespective of healthcare systems, with reflexive and pragmatic illness behaviors, influenced by culture and context. Still, the probably strongest cultural force in relation to illness and disease is so-called school medicine. Pryor of 2003 points out that lay people are experts by virtue of having experience, but that experience on its own is rarely sufficient to understand the technical complexities of disease causation, its consequences, and its management. Medical concept theories pervade and present society a process that has been called medicalization, which seems to be going at an increasing speed. A further development of a person-centered yet largely biomedically based medicine would raise multiple scientific, ethical, and practical issues. First and foremost, what would be considered valid knowledge and information in different healthcare and education settings when perspectives collide? Moreover, to which extent and how should these perspectives actually be implemented in the training of healthcare professionals? What about situations where there is a clash between personal and professional goals of care? What do medical ethics actually imply with regard to medical responsibility if the patient involved in decision-making and treatment is considered a leading principle? To find answers to such crucial questions is of course demanding and challenging. Still, the fact is that questions currently are under debate and is indeed a promise for the future of person-centered yet largely biomedically based public healthcare systems. Okay, we're down to the conclusion, guys. We're almost there. The highly specialized biomedical knowledge incorporated in current modern Western public healthcare systems is of crucial importance to patients' health and well-being. These systems are officially aiming at patient involvement and shared decision-making. There is, however, a rather strong focus on biomedical knowledge as the dominant basis for problem-solving. Patients report unmet healthcare needs, and their widespread use of alternative medicine may be seen as a sign of shortcomings of the exclusive dominance of the biomedical perspective. We thus propose that a crucial question for the future is whether complementary epistemological I'm still struggling with this word. Epistemological perspectives will be considered valuable in science and clinical practice. The growth of interest in alternative medicine is a reminder to public healthcare systems and healthcare professionals there are individuals that seem to pass unmet and that seem to fall outside the persistent dominant frames of understanding. If experience-based knowledge and patient self-defined healthcare needs are disregarded in public healthcare policy and medicine education, this may negatively influence modern healthcare users, trust, and interaction with public healthcare systems. Consequently, the use of unregulated, expensive, and underexploited alternatives found in alternative medicine may increase. This may in turn have multiple possible negative effects on patient safety and the legitimacy and quality of public health care. As trust and risk are closely connected, furthermore, we claim that the need to widen the epistemological frames of science and clinical practice may indeed be seen as an invitation to bridge the gap between the two cultures, that of science and that of the humanities. Clinical practice will prevent, cure, eliminate, and console by using a broad scope of human knowledge and experience. In so doing, the healthcare needs of the 21st century will stand better chances to be met. Okay, and that's the end of the article. That was a very nice way to end it off. Yay! I'm finally finished with it. What's with the What do you mean? Interesting article, but I much preferred the debates and discussions all had. Yeah, I think it seems to be a sort of like a split between like people in my audience that would prefer to me just read the article, and people that want me to like discuss things. Especially since I'm just coming from the perspective of somebody studying humanities, to somebody that might have like a more biomedically based perspective, or like an opinion that's sort of rooted more in problems, like in solutions and that sort of thing, may have a different opinion from me as somebody who's an opinion based in medical humanities. So yeah, it's interesting. On acupuncture and patriarchy in the Western world, though. Yeah, I mean, yeah, do your own research. I shouldn't be your only source on that sort of thing. Yeah. Yeah, that was very interesting. It was a very nice stream to have. It was very nice discussions, except for a couple of things. But overall, it was a nice stream, and it was good talking to you all. I'm welcome to talk about general stuff afterwards if you want to discuss things. But otherwise, I might bugger off because it is midnight where I am. What article or story plans do you have next? Well, currently I'm sort of up to date on my academic readings. Sorry. So if I'm still up to date with them, by the time it comes forward, I may do another reading of the. Sorry. I may do another reading of The Book Thief because I've been reading through that and we're about a quarter way through now. And we've done 2 or 3 readings of that. So it'd be good to get back into that again. If I want to do a more like short story stream, I might read some children's books because those seem to be quite entertaining as well. Yeah, or I might read maybe one of your stories if you're welcome to submit them. I'm welcome to read stuff that chat submits as well. I haven't read much Shakespeare. Is it something that interests you? It's extremely hard to read. I did a bit of that in high school, and I fear that I would botch the language like to the extent where it would just be unlistenable, where you couldn't understand what I'm saying. I just fear that I wouldn't perform it very well, especially since it involves doing different voices. And even as the characters in the novel that I'm currently reading are quite, yeah, they have different voices and I try to voice them, but it's quite difficult at times. I'll have to get better at doing impressions in different voices. Yeah, I mean, I'm welcome to do any suggestions that I currently have, a hold of. Like, the books that I currently have with me on my bookshelf that I'd be welcome to reading. Like, I have quite a few children's books which I enjoy reading because, people might want to just listen to like something from their childhood. It's nostalgic and I love it. So I have like the Winnie the Pooh collection and a bunch of Roald Dahl books. And I also have almost the complete Aragon series. So Aragon, Razinga, and The Eldest as books. I also have the first Narnia book, so the Magician's Nephew, and I also have The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I'll be open to reading that as well. There's also Kite Runner, which is also a book which I adore, so I wouldn't mind reading that as well. And also a classic from the country that I come from called Dunga, that's sort of based on living in New Zealand and sort of like a more slice of life-y sort of thing. Yeah. So there's lots of different things to choose from. But if there's a particular book that I want to read, I could see if I could get it out from a library or something and I could read it to you if I don't currently have it with me. You don't like moral choices. Too bad, I'm giving you too many. Okay. I mean, I'll see. I'm very bad with technology, so I don't know how to do a poll. There's only 3 of you here, so it's like, I love moral choices, they just take too long to choose. Understandable, I get that. That is kind of hard sometimes. Yeah. Consider all possibilities. Like, it comes down to it. Would you like me to read something that's more nostalgic? Would you rather me read something that's more academic, like it is this time? Would you want me to read something that's sort of more like a more adult novel, or one that's sort of more based in like the real world? Because with the real world novels, you sort of like a mix of both, like academia, because both The Kite Runner and Book Thief are based on real world events and real world countries and conflicts. So yeah, they get like a little mixture of both with those ones. Yeah, but they're also more difficult to read. Yeah. I'll change my stream title again, just because people might be confused and thinking that I'm still reading the article. Yeah. There we go. You do have an interesting philosophical situation to pose for you, though. But you have to go. Have to go where? What do you mean? What do you mean? What are you trying to propose? But if you have to go, I mean, you can just say it now, so you don't have to worry about it later. Oh yeah. Okay, no, it's okay. You can talk about it now. You can propose something. I can talk about it, and then I can go. It's not that hard. I'm here right now, and I don't know. I think the next time I'll be streaming is either Thursday or Friday. I think because Wednesday is quite busy for me. But I'll be streaming on either Thursday or Friday, so it's always then. But if you can say it now and that you won't forget it for next time, feel free to say it now. I'm welcome to anything that you might say. I can already feel the lozenge helping with my throat. It was brutal. I never realized how long my academic readings actually were in the beginning. Because I was talking to another friend about their readings, they're like, oh, my readings are like 8 to 10 pages long, and I'm like, wow, that's really long. But then I checked how many pages there were in this one before I started reading it, and there's 12 pages in it, and I'm like, dang, I read a 12-page article. I'm very proud of myself. Yeah, and there were definitely longer ones which I have read as well, so yeah, a little bit of self-pride over here, don't mind me, just proud of what I'm doing. The best book is your book? What is your book? What does your book say? What are you trying to present? What are you trying to propose? What is your book? What is your suggestion? Give me the suggestion. You're never going to tell me. I wrote it down, but I can't find it. Oh, that's not good. Tell me if you remember it. It's a game. Actually, they went through a lot of phases. Oh, did you create, is it a video game or a board game or... I mean, if it's a story, then is it like a visual novel or something like that? Or... I'm not entirely sure what you mean. Maybe like elaborate, please. Elaborate on that. I don't know about the specifics. I came up with a story about utopia/dystopia balance. Oh, that sounds really interesting. And I don't know what to do with it. I mean, I'd be welcome to take it. I'd be welcome to read it. If it's short, I could read it now if you want. To try visual like book, visual novel, games. Oh, that's so interesting. I mean, there's already been someone in the chat that suggests that that has already come out to me that they're an author, so I'm welcome to. I can tell you the world setting it, but yeah, of course. Any feedback is welcome. Yeah, of course. I'd be welcome to read it and give my thoughts on it. I'd be welcome to do that. Oh, good. Sounds very interesting. Yeah, if it's long and if I think that it'd be something that I'd like to read on my stream, you can send me a link or something over Twitter so I can like get a hold of it and I can read it on one of my streams. Or like maybe I could get like a collection of stories from from people in my chat and I can read them on stream to people. That'd be nice. We're in a world with two major cities striving for utopia. Okay. Okay, so it's sort of like, oh, so you might get a lot of contrast and like, oh, that sounds very interesting. I guess it's sort of like the real world in that aspect as well. In the first city, people have a microchip on them and doesn't allow them to hurt other people, but they only put it on if they want to and get paid for it. Oh, okay. Oh, that's very interesting. So people who feel like they're placing this constraint on themselves based on whether they think that whether they think and themselves that they're violent or not. That's very interesting. So it's still their choice, but it's putting on this constraint on them. Yeah, that's very interesting. It's a very interesting, yeah, it's a very interesting moral conundrum you put there. This shift is also used for the economy. So if a person has a positive thought about the actions of another person, about actions of the other person gets some money, vice versa. Oh, so like if you have positive thoughts about somebody, that person that you're thinking about gets money, or do you get money for thinking positive thoughts? It's like a social security chip. Oh, that's very interesting. So the person that you're thinking positively about. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's an incredibly interesting concept to choose from. Yeah, when the human condition of charity and kindness is monetized and violence is ridiculed and looked down upon, would that create a new social stigma in the way that those who have made mistakes are looked down upon and become poorer and poorer for their past mistakes? Okay, finally in this world there are some creatures that affect the area around them in different ways. One of these creatures has stolen the voices of the children from the first city. So the children have to use sign language to communicate. Oh, that could be a unique symbol. So the chip is only used for those two things. Okay, so like you have the chip which prevents people from hurting one another, and the chip also gives economic funding to people that you think nicely of. Am I interpreting that correctly? Okay. Yeah, so that's where the game begins pretty much. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, and sign language is a very good symbol of like gestural communication, so that's a very interesting aspect to the story as well. Okay. Um, no, I wasn't thinking like the chips force them to do that. I mean like if somebody makes a mistake and is sort of forced down into the spiral, people thinking negatively of them until they eventually reach this level of poverty that they can't get out of, because everyone's perspective of them is so rotten and they can't get out of this. And so they don't receive any funding. They end up in the cycle of poverty, which they have to redeem themselves out of, essentially. Yeah, very interesting. So redemption pays. I mean, if they have a chip on them, they have UBI, so they can definitely survive as long as they have the chip. Otherwise, they have to work, yeah. Okay, so if you have the chip in you, you don't have to work, and you get paid through people thinking kindly of it. Universal basic income. Oh, okay. Okay, so you get a universal basic income whether you are thought kindly of or not, but you get extra money if people think kindly of you. Is that how that works? To discover. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's very interesting. Okay, so does that mean that people who are thought kindly of might have a better social standing over those who are thought averagely or bad of? Like for example, because money plays a big aspect of your role in society as well. Yeah, it sounds like a very interesting story. Okay. Well, my Twitter handle is in the bio of my account, so if you want to like flick me over a link to where I could read the story, where I could like print it out or something and read it on stream, that'd be great. And I could let you know when that's happening. And New McFluffy, if you have a piece that's like short enough for me to read on stream as well, I'd be welcome to do that as well. So I could read like your stories in conjunction with one another. That would be a very cool stream to do. Yeah. Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see like how people in my chat like have written, especially since you guys are explaining it in great detail and one of you publishes books and is actually an author. I mean, with casual, whether you're an amateur or it doesn't matter, it just provides what sort of perspective you view to the world. Yeah. I mean, if you don't care to get spoiled, we have a whole story on GitLab, and it's an open source story. Oh, okay. Okay, so is GitLab like a free site that I can look into? Okay. I might have to write this down so I can use it later. So it's called GitLab, and I can take the story from there. Oh, so yeah, so basically use it / improve upon it. I mean, I don't want to intrude onto your own writing. I mean, it's your baby. It's your writing piece. I can give you suggestions from when I read it, I guess, but I don't want to encroach on it. Yeah, I would be welcome to reading like the first couple of chapters if it's written in the same series as a novel. That would be nice. Yeah. Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, I might do a quick Google search and see if I can find it. GitLab. This is I can need the link to the game. Oh, so it's a game. Okay. But everything is on there, so if you want to experience the game, I don't recommend reading it. Oh, so it's a game that you're trying to give to me. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure if my computer could handle playing it on stream or not because my computer's very bad in terms of software. So, I mean, I think I would just play it in my own time, and then I could give you my thoughts on it, I guess. Yeah, it's okay. Sorry about that. I mean, if you could put it in like a short story format, I wouldn't mind reading that section on stream. Yeah. I mean, if it is a visual novel, I can sort of read it as I go and I can explain what's happening, I guess. But I need 2 laptops for that. Yeah, I mean, that would be nice. Yeah, getting behind someone's creation is very nice. Yeah, okay. So what's the name? Oh, so you can just give me the link later. That'd be much appreciated, so I don't have to go searching for it. Oh no, that's fine. You take your time on whatever you're doing. Okay, that was a very nice interaction. Okay, so we'll just wait for them to return. So has the philosophical question for you returned yet? Yeah, I know what the philosophical. It's a variation of the trolley problem. Oh, okay. So what's the question? What's the moral dilemma? Of course I am. I mean, if it's a moral dilemma that I can answer, I'll go for it. I think the moral dilemma is a bit too morally dark, though. Maybe I shouldn't say. Why suggest it in the first place if you think it's too dark? I mean, I don't think I'll mind. Just go for it. I mean, sure, it should be fine. It's fine. I mean, why would you even mention it in the first place if you're just gonna be like, sorry, it's just too dark, sorry. I'm not gonna show it to you. You know, it's just too dark. You know, it's too edgy. Why would it? You wouldn't like it anyway. No, just give me the fucking moral dilemma, man. Just give it to me. Give it. Hand it over right now. Hand it over, please. Can I say the name of the game, or should I whisper it? I mean, you can just say the name of the game to the chat, so if anybody else who's watching is interested in playing it, they can play it too. But maybe you should also whisper it to us, because I may forget it. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, a train is on a track, and the track is a baby. Okay? And also, on the track is a baby, sorry. On the other track is a pregnant woman. Would you pull the train? Oh. Ah. It's called reverse module. Okay. Reverse module on stream. Yeah, it's a very interesting moral dilemma. Okay, so like the track that the train is already on is going towards a baby, and on the other track is a pregnant woman. So would you switch the track to kill the pregnant woman in order to save the baby? Okay. I I have a lot of struggle with this, especially since I don't like valuing one life over the other. I don't know what I'd do. That's a weird question. I mean, hmm. You're messing with my brain. I don't know what I'd do. Can I just say that I wouldn't answer? I know that's really boring. Baby is crying. No! Don't make me feel guilty for the imaginary baby. Stop it. No! The baby is crying, but like the woman is probably screaming too. They're clouding my judgment. I can't make an informed decision, man. Kids these days. um. Hmm. Can I ask another dilemma? Yeah, go for it. I mean, if it's something that I can answer more definitely. With the whole pregnant lady baby thing, not so hard though. Okay, thank you. That might be much appreciated for my poor and pathetic brain. hmm. Hmm. I mean, in terms of the last problem, I think I would personally kill the baby, but that's just personal preference. I don't have any moral thing to ask, like for reasoning behind it. I just think I would kill the baby. It might be because it hasn't experienced a lot of life yet, and the pregnant woman has, and so they have a better understanding and fear of death, and I understand what it's like to have that fear. Whereas the baby hasn't experienced a lot yet, so they don't have an understanding of what they're missing out on in comparison to the older person. Yeah, I mean both situations are terrible, but yeah. So you can physically change your likes and dislikes at will. For example, if you love someone and they don't love you back, you can surgically make yourself not love them anymore. Would you do it? Hmm. Would I change myself not to like? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. Um, because your likes and dislikes are what make you a person. So I think that no matter what you like or dislike, that's a component of your personality. And if that's a like or dislike which is unpopular, something that you think is is damaging, maybe that's to do with an underlying cause which might need to be addressed. For example, someone might be masochistic or or like certain things which may harm others, and there may be reasoning behind that. But if you just erase it, you won't be solving the core issue. Your likes and dislikes reflect you as a person, and so being able to have those and be able to look at them is to look into yourself as a person. So yeah, I think they're important. They're important to you. They're important to you being a person. because differences in opinion is what makes us unique. And so being able to change those things at will, wouldn't everyone just sort of confine to have their likes and dislikes over time as well? Yeah. Okay. It was a very good question. Like, thank you for asking that. Surely there would, I mean, I think all of us would be guilty at times to wanting to to dislike something, or so desperately want to relate to somebody else who has like such a passionate, passion for something that you just can't understand. And being able to understand and like that is all you want to do, but no matter how you try, you can't. I can understand it from that perspective. Being able to understand it at your own pace and being able to enjoy something like genuinely is what makes something so likable in the first place. So yeah, it just takes the experience away. That was a really fun discussion with very interesting moral problems. Yeah, okay. I think I might end the stream there because it is almost 1 a.m. where I am. Okay, so I think I'll just leave it there. Yeah, feel free to message me the link to your game and I'll play it and I'll message you what I think of it and my opinions of it and that sort of thing. Yeah, it's getting pretty late here. So I'll say goodbye here. Remember to message me the link to your game so I can actually play it. Yeah, thank you. I hopefully I'll sleep well. Yeah. I hope you guys have a nice night or the rest of your day wherever you are. Oh, thanks for the follow. Okay. I'll probably see you guys next time if you want to watch me again. But if not, I hope you have a nice life. Goodbye.